All right, just finished a conversation with our guy, Tim Kawakami, listener of this show. Thanks for being here. Going to play that for you in just 1 second. I didn't realize till we started talking that he just talked to Kyle Shanahan. So we talked a lot about that. It's on his podcast feed right now, the TK Show, as is 49ers Plus Minus with him and Matt Barrows. The TK Show, where he gets into a bunch of Warrior stuff and North-South. So he's got 3 different pods on that feed, but you can go find it there. Tim also, as you probably know, writes in The Athletic. And grabbed him here at Levi Stadium for a few minutes, and it's all Niners. You know, a lot of Purdy, a lot of Shanahan, a lot of Lions preview. Tim actually makes his pick in this video, so we'll get to that. Before we start, though, just wanted to ask you to like the video. Appreciate that if you do. Helps other people find it, whether you're watching this premiere or watching it after the fact. It's a big help. You become a sponsor of the show, kind of like Tito's, who pays money. Tito's, but we love it, even if they didn't pay money. Tito's handmade vodka, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. All right, here we go. Tim Kawakami. TK, Niners Lions. How you feeling? What do you think?
You know,
did they lose some shine?
Yeah, yes, and I think in everybody's opinion. I don't think the Lions look great either. You know, they're different moment for them, but I definitely think the 49ers could have lost last game to a inferior team, Green Bay Packers, than the Lions are. If they play like that, they clearly could lose this game. I would not have thought that. I think any dome team coming into an outdoor stadium on the road is tough. I always think that. I've thought that for my entire career. I've watched, I think when I first started, I was covering the Barry Sanders kind of first playoff team, they only made the playoffs once or twice, and they just didn't look the same, on the grass, like at RFK Stadium in Washington or wherever it was. I get the feeling that this Lions team is very similar. Now, I think they are good. I think they stopped the run. That's what the 49ers understand that part. Like, what do they always say? Stop the run, run the ball. I was talking to Shanahan today after his presser, and old school, I called him like, you coach like an older guy. And he's like, yeah. I don't think like that, but he does. But that's stuff I like. I think a lot of people don't. They hated the end of the first half. They hated kind of the percentage plays that he does. He's not going to do wild stuff. He's not going to fake punt. I think that wins you games more than it loses you games if you have the better talent. I think they've got the better talent on Sunday. Doesn't mean there won't be an interception or a ball bouncing around or a kickoff return. By the way, we learned that, and I kind of was thinking that. They didn't intentionally kick short. That was just Moody kicking it short, accidentally. Like, they're not going, oh, God, we got this great strategy. We're going to kick short and watch it come back on them 50 straight times. Yeah. They did it for like 10 straight times. They're not trying to do that anymore. That was just a mishit. That's why, the Moody thing is still up in the air. That's not strategy. That's just bad kickoff. So I just, if they take out those random things, which is Shanahan's stated goal, like, I don't want the crazy shit. I just want to beat this team, whatever team in front of me. If I have more talent, I'm paraphrasing. This is not him saying this. Yeah. With more talent and better strategy, and just stay to it and stick to it, you will win most of the time. Now, you will not win every time, and they almost lost, no question. But if a few things don't happen on last Saturday, they lose that game. That was one, maybe Shanahan's conservatism kind of brought them closer to losing, but they did not lose. And I think that sort of game, if they just play sharper, they will win this game by 10. They just got to play better. Maybe they won't, but I do have more, I have more faith in that sort of idea than most people do. I grew up covering Parcells, Gibbs a little more open offensively. I just believe in that stuff when you've got the better team. I get it. It's frustrating. It did not look good at the end of the first half. It did not work at the end of the first half and then the beginning of the third to try to get that lap. But I think it does, when you should win, you usually win. You don't throw away stuff. And I think you can play a similar game to beat the Lions if Brock Purdy's just a little more sharp, if they just play the run a little bit better. Those are issues. We'll see. But I just think they're not going to coach themselves into a loss. Maybe people thought they kind of did last game. They didn't lose. I understood a lot of it. I wouldn't have done it, but I understood it, and I understand it going into this game.
I didn't bring Tim Kawakami here to talk kicking, but what's interesting about that kick, it went to the goal line. It was 4.11, 4.12. I timed it a couple times this morning, which is that's top end of the league.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Airtime.
Yeah, it was up in the air. There's no question.
And they're much better than they were in terms of kickoff return percentage than they were last year with Robbie, who was like 53% of the time they got a return. This year they're 33% of the time they get a return, which is 5th highest in the league. Touchbacks 60% of the time. That's 23rd in the NFL. There's something that's, and my question would be, does it also show up in his field goal kicking? Is he an inconsistent ball striker? Is that what's happening here?
I believe that. I think that's the overarching thing. Somebody, oh no, he's just like Papa. Oh, he's making everything. What are you talking about? No, there's some mishits, even some his makes. People we're looking at, like some of those extra points are going, and I've talked to you guys. He doesn't aim to hit it right. He aims it right to try to turn it over left, and when it goes straight right, that's a dead miss. And he does that sometimes. So what happens? He's not one of the best kickers in the league. You live with it. They're in this position. But I suspected that they weren't trying to kick it short. Like, you keep asking about it, and they don't say anything. Like, I think they're not trying to do that. And and their coverage unit isn't as good as it was, say, last year or the previous year. They've obviously switched some of the coverage stuff up. That could have lost them the game on Saturday. That single kickoff return could have lost them. They get ahead.
Came right after the McCaffrey touchdown.
They get the emotions. Okay, everything, here it is. The game's, they got it back under control, and that thing comes right back on their ass. And various other things, things that we're not used to seeing them do. That was one of them, the 53-yard run after they pin him back down, late to midway through the fourth quarter. These are things we're not used to seeing. If those things happen on Sunday, I think they're going to lose.
Yeah, the difference, I think one of the differences between Detroit and Green Bay is Detroit's like a more experienced version of Green Bay, right? They've got a lot of skill guys just like Green Bay. They're more, Laporta's not established in terms of time in the league, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is, right? He's kind of the golden, they got the two running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is a...
that guy's the thing, he might hurt the 49ers.
I think he's about as close to McCaffrey as you can. Breece Hall's kind of close when you look, but Jahmyr Gibbs is pretty close.
There are a lot of running backs, I think, like every time he touches the ball on a swing pass, he could go. Like McCaffrey, yes, obviously. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I think he could. And that's the kind of guy that the 49ers play it straight, and then you got the linebacker on him, and the linebacker misses the tackle. That's happened. That could go 70 the other way.
There's only two guys in the league that have more 15-yard carries than Gibbs, and it's Breece Hall and Christian McCaffrey.
There's an explosiveness now. Is it the same on grass as it has on turf? It's maybe that's simple of me to say, but I do always wonder about that. I always do wonder about that. We know Goff is a better player, better quarterback inside than he is outside. Again, this isn't, we'll see. The 49ers aren't that great when it rains either, as we saw. I think the forecast still is that it's going to be dry on Sunday. I think it's wet today.
It's supposed to be dry today. When I got here, it rained on me.
You never know. You never know. And it's freaking cold, by the way.
It is cold.
So it might be conditions game, and, that's okay. I don't think the Lions are perfectly suited for it, but they are better suited for it than a team that doesn't have those defensive linemen, that doesn't play the run as well as they do. They do not play the pass very well. We know that. Although the Packers went in not playing the pass very well, and they look pretty good.
Kyle tried to throw.
Yep. And he kept throwing. I will say, people have said this on it, I don't know that you could have gone into a shell in that game. Like, even if he wanted to, if it was Jimmy throwing 2 interceptions, and Kyle would want to go into a shell, you couldn't have gone into a shell in that game because you were down.
But is it a shell if you're giving it to Christian McCaffrey? Is that really a shell?
If they're overplaying it, and I don't think they were crazily overplaying it, but they were ready for that. They were not giving up the kind of stuff we see when McCaffrey's just going. They only ran the ball 25 times, and 6 of those were Purdy. So clearly there was not something schematically that Shanahan loved. I don't think that was a game where you could just go, we're turning around and giving it to Christian McCaffrey 30 times, and we're going to give, and it was obviously not a game where Elijah Mitchell was going to play at all, because guess what? He did not play at all. I think the Lions might be similar. I think they're going to have the same commitment, right? Let's see if Brock Purdy is going to have another bad game, and make sure that Christian McCaffrey doesn't beat you. And by the way, in the Christian McCaffrey not beat you, he gets 2 touchdowns. One of them, it's a monster run. I think they will again play it to see if Brock Purdy can be better than he was on Saturday, because he was not great. He was not great whether the ball was wet or not. I think the decisions were weird. He said himself today, he got a little tentative after the near pick on his first pass. I don't know whether that was affected by the rain or not, but he definitely looked
bizarre because he usually doesn't get tricked or whatever happened there.
It's like he was determined to throw it there, and there was a guy there, and I don't know whether he just thought, okay, I got the grip right now, so I'm going to throw it right now. I don't know. I mean, we saw him patting the ball a little extra. We saw him and then I would have asked, I didn't ask because that's okay today. I'm not going to complain about not getting a question, and I did that on my podcast, and I was wrong because I just muted myself.
Big man, only a big man would have done that.
Like, oops, I was not happy about that, but that was my own fault. My own fault. Listen to the podcast. You hear my rant.
Yeah.
The only thing I would ask Purdy today was, you were different on that last drive, though. There's no question. There was a different feel to him. He wasn't doing this thing with the ball. He wasn't. I don't sense that he was ever felt tentative about the way he was throwing the ball. Even as we said, the one incompletion going 6 or 7 was that Kittle dropped. Like, this was a guy who felt under control for that drive. So what happened on that drive? He probably wouldn't have said, here's exactly what we did. We did this, we cleaned the ball here, and then but that throw to Conley was a great throw.
Yeah, and I talked to your boy. You said you claimed Chris Conley, but I've also claimed Chris Conley because we were both at Incirlik Air Force Base in Turkey at the same time. Our dads were both in the service. But I asked Chris Conley today, how many times do you think you've caught that ball from Brock Purdy? And he said maybe once or twice.
In practice, even?
Period, including practice and the preseason.
He was practicing in training camp. I mean,
but he said he probably will catch in like full team, maybe a ball a day from Brock, and then he'll get some balls from Brock on air where they're running drills. But depends if Brock's on his side that day or not, because they'll all rotate through. But he told me he thought he's caught that ball on that route from Brock maybe once or twice this year. Maybe
Brock threw it like he was throwing it to Ayuk.
Well, that's what he said. He said, I said, what made the play? He said, well, I know the route, and Brock just ripped it. So he gave Brock the credit for trusting him, I think, is what he was saying.
It was, you can tell, we've talked about this, I think, like there's routes and there's receivers that Purdy just feels confident about.
Yeah.
And it's usually number 11. It's usually on a route like that or coming back over the middle, and he's just ripping out. The first one was kind of like that, and he threw it to the wrong team.
Yeah. He trusts Juwan.
He trusts Juwan, and Juwan went up and got it on that third down play. Like there's some things that you can just tell that he has faith in. Probably doesn't have that much faith in Ray McLeod right now. Like he talked about it. It was very interesting. He does not usually go into detail. I guess it was the camera angle that showed him not being happy about it. And Shanahan even mentioned it after the game. Like there probably was a misread where he was throwing it to a spot that Ray decided to go to another spot. Those are things that, like I always compare him to Breeze now because other people have done it. Like when Breeze, he throws to a spot. Like when he got pissed at a receiver, you are not at the spot. I gotta believe you're gonna be there. Aikman talks about this all the time. I have to believe you're gonna cross the face.
Manning had to have been that way,
exactly.
At least later in his career, right?
I'm not, exactly. And he didn't, I don't know if he talked about it. Maybe he does a little bit now. But like Elway was like, you just get someone, I'm just gonna fire as hard as I can. Favre, the same thing.
As soon as you're open.
But the quarterbacks who play with more touch, who don't have the howitzer arms. Tua is similar to this. I need you to be where I think you're going to be because I'm throwing it before you make that cut.
Right.
Like we've seen it with Brock, and he for sure as hell believes that in Ayuk. We've seen it against the Seahawks. Then it's still the best throw I think I've seen him. Maybe one of the best throws the 49er quarterbacks thrown in a long time. Kaepernick might have had one or two like that, but they were different than that. The Bolden
ball against the Seahawks as well in the back of the end zone was a great ball.
But it's the guy is running to a spot, is not there yet, and he's believing that that's where the ball's got to go.
Yeah.
And he threw that one to Conley like that. That's to say that's what that throw was like. I am stepping in, and you are going to make that cut, and that's exactly what I'm throwing. And it was different. I don't remember maybe one or two balls earlier in the game that was like that, but I can't remember them, even if he did. The Kittle touchdown. That was a pretty good pass.
That was.
And that was.
He lets it go when Kittle's on the 10.
Yeah, and that had some arm to it, and that was perfectly located. But that's what we're used to, right? That's the Purdy that we've seen all season. It just didn't show up for most of that game.
We don't have to spend our time here doing Jordan Love debates or whatever. Yeah. But I think it's the flat-footed throws is where you kind of see the difference.
Yep. And that's some arm strength is that, right? That's like
and size. I think you get hit by a guy, there's an arm in front of you, that sort of thing. But isn't it funny, on the most important drive of the year, they had Conley and Ray McLeod were on the field.
Well, I mean, they were down a receiver, right? They're down a very important receiver in Deebo Samuel. But yes, I think, again, I don't want to laugh about it, but I think Conley should have been playing more. I think Conley is a good receiver. I just do. I really do.
Very big Conley guy.
I just think he looks like Ayuk. Like, you need guys who have that physical feel. Like, I can get here, and even if the guy bumps me, I'm still going to get there. Yeah. That's what I believe in Ayuk. Like a little bounce, I'm still going to be on the spot. You bump maybe Ray McLeod, and he goes 7 yards offline a little bit. Those are the kind of receivers I think work in a Shanahan timing. This is you look at the receivers that were great for Manning, different system but similar quarterback.
Marvin Harrison was going to be exactly where you wanted him to be, where you needed him to be, and if I throw it there, I don't care if there's a guy bumping him, he's going to find his way to get there. Not that Conley's great, I just think that catch was everything I thought that he might be able to do from back in training camp. That's because Barrows makes fun of me for it, but I just think this guy, the smaller, the Ronnie Bells, I'm always making fun of him, but I don't know that he gets to that spot. Get to that spot. Be in that spot, have the speed and the talent to get there, but also the commitment that I've got to be exactly where that ball is going to be. And I think Chris Conley, I mean, Ayuk is the definition of that, and I think Chris Conley's got some of that.
So, as it relates to Purdy, did that game in any way change your opinion on what a Super Bowl might, should the Niners beat the Lions, of what they would need from him in a rematch with the Ravens or a game with the Chiefs?
The Ravens thing obviously is the other thing that gives you pause. I think, I've been high on Purdy. I know you guys have been high on Purdy. I think a lot of them, although John was kind of banging him, you had to calm him down a little bit.
Yeah, although okay. I think, these things.
It's
but I just think all this, you end up arguing a point and there's no nuance.
That's why I think the MVP talk in some ways was a disservice to him. Just the conversation of it.
Because it put him in a category.
Exactly. He's better than Lamar Jackson. You think he's better than Lamar? No. I always think MVP talk is kind of dumb because it's just like, let it happen. You want to win games. Winning games get you awards, not awards win you games. I 100% believe that in all sports, in all cases. I think with Purdy, it especially sets him up because, you guys like this little guy who doesn't really run, who doesn't have the greatest. You think he's better than these other guys. No, take that out of discussion. Does he win games? Does he do things that help you win games? He did at the end of that game. He didn't do a ton of them, but they win the game, get him to the next one, then we'll judge the whole thing at the end. It's maybe a little boring, but he's not as physically skilled as these others. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson. He can be Drew Brees, though, or a version of Drew Brees, and that guy won a hell of a lot of games, broke a lot of records. Kyle Shanahan will take that guy every single time. The wet weather for sure, I think is, which probably won't happen Sunday, but we shall see. Clearly will not be wet in the Super Bowl. But I think you do see it when the pocket gets a little jumbled. Shannon even mentioned, like, when there's a big defensive tackle in front of you, you're 6'1", you're not 6'4", the throwing lane's a little different. And we've seen Purdy, adjust his throwings because he's got guys in his face. I think the Packers did get guys in his face. Yeah. They weren't on top of him, but they were in his face. There are windows that he doesn't have, maybe, that other guys do, but he's also, he finds himself other windows because he can move a little bit. Yeah. Because he can, have the exact kind of anticipation for where the ball needs to go. I guess I'm just going to say, I never thought he was going to be Patrick Mahomes. I thought he could be a version of Drew Brees. I don't think that's changed. Maybe I'm even more definitive that he's not going to be Patrick Mahomes, but I think we're pretty sure. Yeah. I think, again, that's where that MVP, just say what his stats are, just say the team's won, and then let the argument go from there. You don't need to keep saying he's the MVP. Again, it's just the whole other, and in the NFL, what does the MVP really mean? Is it just means best quarterback? I mean, I don't like getting involved because you get stuck on that. Yeah. And I don't think he's a guy, I get stuck quarterback. He's a guy who's going to be at different things at different levels at different times. It was a lower level on Saturday. I think he was due, and what I wrote is like, by the way, though, you think this criticism is going to be bad for him? I think he loves this. Maybe it's good for him. It's like, hey, you think I'm that little guy that can't win? That's what you think? You think I'm Mr. Irrelevant? Okay. Yeah. I think that has fueled him. He doesn't say it up at the podium, but I know him enough, that sort of thing. any competitor enough that's going to be, okay, let's see. You think that's who I am? Okay, we'll see what I am on Sunday.
One last thing, and then I'll you can get to
posting a podcast.
Posting a podcast, which is, it sounds like
audio file.
It sounds like maybe you're writing about this a little bit, but what does this game mean for Kyle Shanahan? And when you say that, you say, I think in this case, losing means so much more than winning would mean. Winning means getting a chance to finally get the one he needs. But where are you with him?
I've thrown the Andy Reid thing out there. It's obviously you're looking at back in retrospect that Andy Reid does not win a Super Bowl for 15 years as a coach, and that is now not a problem, obviously.
Right.
I think Shanahan is, I've been meaning to talk to him about, this is not tipping anything, I talked to him about competing with Bill Belichick, competing with Pete Carroll. That's when this idea began. It's like, what was it like to compete? What did you learn from those guys? This was not pertaining to the NFC Championship game. This was just something that we've been meaning to talk about.
So this is will be out or is coming.
Yeah,
out,
I'm posting it as an audio file. And I was like, he doesn't have much time. But then he was, then turned into his place on, now he and McVay are the two longest tenured head coaches in the NFC. And he's kind of like, and what I said is something I think that you would agree with. I was like, he goes, I don't feel old. My players look at me differently. I've got gray hair. I go, I think you coach like an old guy. I think you've always coached like an old guy. He's like, really? I don't think so at all. Like, people wouldn't say that. I go, yeah, you do. You're playing the percentages. You're not doing crazy stuff. He goes, well, that's because I've learned. I've learned from, when I was a coordinator, maybe as a coordinator, you wouldn't say the same thing about me.
Interesting.
So
hard.
How do you prepare? No question. I'd ask about the physicality of it. The new guys maybe kind of look at me, whoopee, I'm doing this, that. And I know fans do love this. I'm more old school. That doesn't win you games. Like, it's exciting they're going for it on 4th down. Okay, wait a minute. Did it help you win the game? Kyle doesn't do that shit, right? Kyle is trying to do what's going to cause the least amount of random things. It's because his team's better, his scheme's better. We'll see if that happens in the end. I did ask him, this is your 4th NFC Championship game. This is something that you feel you got now? No, not got as in I got to win, meaning I got how this process works. He goes, yeah, and especially because of the players. The players understand what this is. And it isn't like we're going to keep doing it. We never think that. We understand how hard it is to get to this spot, how hard it is to win, and how hard it is if you lose to deal with. Like, all those things. So it wasn't pertaining, because this wasn't meant for right now. It was supposed to be a couple weeks ago. It just got postponed. We're talking more general than the moment. But I did ask him about an NFC Championship game. That this is a system that has got them to this place. They do have to break through. They have to win a Super Bowl. Everyone understands that. But I do feel like this is an Andy Reid thing. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to take 15 years. Go 11 in the Eagles and not win, and then go 4 in the Chiefs. But I feel like this is set up to be like that.
Yeah.
You got to get Mahomes. He gets Mahomes dropped into. That's a whole other thing. But would the teams that had Andy Reid, are they mad that they had Andy Reid when he didn't win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I think, and at some point that is going to break through for the 49ers. I've written that a million times. I don't know when that's going to be. They certainly are set up to do it this season. They get to the Super Bowl and it's the Ravens. They will be underdogs. We shall see. But I think the idea that just kind of came as I was talking to him and as we were batting around this topic before it happened, and now that it's happening right now, is that he's one of the guys, right? He is not just one of the guys schematically. He's one of the establishment coaches. He's
one of the main characters.
There is no question. You go, it's Kyle Shanahan's 49ers. Right. This was probably the case even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but this is really the case now. Pete Carroll's no longer there. Belichick, wherever, and he might not coach again. I don't know. You take those chess pieces off the board, who's the big time guys? It's, you still got, you got Reid, you've got John Harbaugh, you've got Sean McVay, and you've got Kyle Shanahan. There's Tomlin and somebody, but he's not there at the end anymore, in these big games. So, and we saw what happened with Kyle's, Nick Sirianni goes up and he goes down. That's not happening, as far as I'm concerned, with Kyle Shanahan's 49ers. So that's kind of the overall accidental theme of what our conversation turned out to be. And I will post it, unless I'm told I can't, but I believe I will. It's just conversation, right? It's just conversation. And these are interesting times for him. Yeah. And that you can't play terribly, you can't lose the game, but he's the guy. He walks into the room in the NFL overs meetings, he's one of the guys. There's no question about it. Counting the fact that all these assistants of his are head coaches, that's part of it. Right. But just, he's the guy. He carries himself like a guy. And, when we look back on it, and again, I started covering Parcells, I started covering, Jimmy Johnson. He's one of those, he's getting to be one of those guys. You've got to win a Super Bowl. Everyone will go scream at me, no, yeah, you're saying he's the guy. Yes, you must win a Super Bowl.
But in your mind, and I think you're right, it just validates what you already believed. It doesn't it doesn't elevate him to a new tier of active NFL coach.
No, exactly. You don't want to be, he doesn't want to be Mr. Powerful in the meetings, right? He doesn't. But he understands that just out of tenure, just out of being in all these big games, they're going to have 50 million people watch this game. Like, that matters. Yeah. Those things matter. And the Cowboys are gone, the Eagles are gone, he's still there. All these are topics that are kind of going through my head as we're talking and as I'm talking with you.
Good.
So when you read the column later, maybe you will hear some of these things. But I'm going to post it. It's a 9-minute conversation.
Okay. That's really cool. So TK Show, podcast feed. This is just to be clear so people understand what you're doing. You are posting the audio of you and Kyle Shanahan.
We call it audio files.
It's like an interview.
Yeah.
It's you and Kyle.
I had one with Brock Purdy. It's mostly very specific things that I get time alone with somebody that could fit on a podcast, but it's not a podcast.
Right.
It's just a conversation that I'm going to write. For the column. But might as well just use the audio, right? I mean, you got the audio, might as well use it. That's
no rules here, especially on the new TK Show and in The Athletic. There it is, TK, Tim Kawakami. Go check out his podcast and read him in The Athletic. Appreciate you guys jumping in here. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. More coming up from the show. And for now, we out.